Hey guys, welcome back to the Success Seekers or Jesse Invests. You might see the channel name moved around a little bit. But today I'm going to cover one of the main reasons I invest. We're going to dive into the difference between banks, high yield savings, the stock market, and CDs. What are the difference? What should I do with my money? What's the difference between those two, all those things? This is going to be episode one of a new little mini series where it's an instructional mini series where I talk to you guys about just knowledge I've picked up and the stuff that like school does not teach you about what to do with your money and your income and stuff like that. So the title of this video is Your Worst Enemy is the Bank. So why I say that is when the bank takes your money, when you put your money into your checking account or your savings account at the bank, they don't pay you anything for it. There's capital preservation, sure. Your money stays where it is. There's no chance of it fluctuating. It's insured, by the FDIC. Your money is safe in a bank. However, you don't earn anything on it. The banks will pay you pennies to the dollar on your money. If you have like $10,000 in the bank, you might get 5 cents a year in an interest payment from them. It's so small, you often just forget about it. In fact, banks a lot of times have fees too, which maybe you even lose money. And so it looks like a bank's a good spot to keep your capital safe, preserved. Still, sure, maybe you don't care about it making interest, um, and you want it to be safe and secure. Great, but a thing about that is what you're not accounting for is inflation. And it's tough to talk about inflation as like a real thing in equations when you're considering like your return on your money for stocks or savings. But inflation is a real thing that will eat up your money. It's hard to um, put like a number on it because it is something you don't see in the day to day. Your $10,000 you kept in the bank, you can take that 10,000 out 20 years later. Well, it looks like nothing's changed. Like your money's fine. You still have 10,000, but every year inflation has crept up, and that $10,000, what you could buy with that 10,000 in the year 2001, cannot get you as much for $10,000 in 2021. That 10,000 might have been able to get you, the down payment on a house in I don't know, a down payment on a house in 2001, but a nice down payment. But in 2021, that is like the bare minimum to maybe be enough for some sort of down payment. The difference? Inflation. So, according to worlddata.info, the inflation rate is 3.8% annually on average. I believe the last 50 years is what it said. So every year, your money is losing 3.8% to inflation. So if you are earning less than that in a savings account, the stock market, you're just breaking even. Or if you make 3.8, you're breaking even. If you make less, you're losing money. So if you keep your money in the bank and it's not earning you anything, every year you're losing 3.8% on that money. You are losing money to keep your money in the bank. Obviously, there are good things about your money in the bank, like if you need it for a purchase coming up soon, or if you have a lot of bills, you have high bills, high expenses. I have a bank. You definitely want to use the bank, but don't rely on the bank for everything. Don't keep all of your money and all of your assets in the bank because you are paying a premium of around 3% to have it in the bank. So let me see here. So right now, a great alternative to like where do you put your savings if the bank is losing money? A high yield savings account is something that is really great right now. Won't always be this great, possibly. I'll explain that in a second. But right now, a high yield savings account is a great place to put your money because in a high yield savings account, it's just like not like a bank. A lot of they're inside banks. You pick a bank that has a high yield savings account, and it runs like a checking account. Like you can transfer money in, transfer money out. The one I use, there are no sort of restrictions, no fees. I can just take money in, take money out whenever I want. There's so much freedom and flexibility in there. And the advantage to that for your savings, really every money you have that's not for immediate bills or immediate in the next month or 2 years, I would put in the high yield savings account. Because right now the high yield savings account I have is earning me 4.5% in interest payments. For those who are aware of what a dividend is, it's kind of like a dividend payment. I'm getting paid 4.5% a year to have my money sit in that account. Just for having it sit, 4.5% I'm making on it. So if you take out inflation, that average of 3.8, I am earning money after inflation to have my money in that savings account. It is not losing value to inflation. It is earning almost 1% on top after inflation. Now, the value of a high yield savings account has fluctuated over time. Interest rates are really high right now, so they're able to offer such a high interest rate in a high yield savings account at these different banks. If interest rates go up next year, then we could see that 4.5% going up, and I earn more money in a high yield savings account for my money. I earn a higher return. But if interest rates go down, like people are saying they eventually will in 2024, 2025, if interest rates go down, that 4.5% I earn could be going down to 4 or 3.5. So right now, a high interest yield savings account in 2024 is a great place to put your money, as you will combat inflation and earn money. Will it be good if it dips under 3.8? Well, if, let's say, theoretically, the interest rates drop and a high yield savings account earns me 3.5. Well, that's still pretty good compared to my bank. If I put it in my bank, I'm losing 3.8 to inflation. If I keep it in a 3.5 high yield savings account, I'm pretty much breaking even against inflation. It's still better than the bank. So it's comparison, right? It may drop in how much I earn in a high yield savings account, but it's still going to be substantially better, so many times better, 30 times higher return than keeping my money in the bank. So I'm going to keep a high yield savings account for a while. So that's what a high yield savings account is. It's just like another bank account you have. You can freely move money in, move money out, but you're earning at a much higher rate. Why don't banks want you to know that? Why don't they all do that? Well, because they want to earn off that. So when you keep your money in the bank and you are getting pennies to the dollar, pennies to the 10,000 every year, they are taking your money and they are investing it and earning a lot of money. They are earning like 4% plus, and they're just keeping that instead of paying it right back out to you. A high yield savings account cuts that bank middleman and just pays you what you actually should be getting off your money. So that's why I like high yield savings accounts, and I would suggest, with the exception of bills and urgent expenses coming out soon, like I don't know if you have like a wedding in a month or something, then anything longer than that, multi-months, you're planning to save it, I would do the high yield savings account. So that's what that is. So we did talk about banks, talked about high yield savings account. Moving on to CDs. Now, CDs are something I personally don't invest in, but they can be great for people. I'm going to try to give at least as much of an open-minded explanation of this, even though I'm not a fan of them. So a CD is, think of it kind of like a high yield savings. You put a certain amount of money into the CD, and you're promised a certain return. So unlike a high yield savings, that return percentage that you get at the time of opening the CD is locked. So let's say I put $1,000 into my high yield savings account at 4.5%. Well, next month they could announce that, hey, we're only doing 3% now. Dang, that sucks. But I can take my money out right away because there's that flexibility. But that return isn't promised. That high yield savings account amount they pay me can go up and down. A CD gets locked. So if I decide to put $1,000 into a CD, and it says it's going to give me 3% or 5%, let's say it gives me 5% for $1,000, I buy that $1,000 CD, I'm getting that 5% no matter if everything else drops down to paying 2, or on the flip side, if all the interest rates go up to like 7%, I'm still locked into that 5. So it's a good and a bad thing. Just weigh that with your risk. If you think that rates are going to keep going up and higher, then maybe locking yourself in a 5% CD is not a great idea compared to a high yield savings account, because your money could be stuck earning a lower interest rate than what you could be making. You might be like, dang, I put all that money in that. This happened to someone I know. They put a lot of money into a CD at 1% rate because interest rates were so low at that time. 1% was decent. But now interest rates all shot up, and their money is locked in that 1% return. They aren't getting hardly any money for their CD. They wish that they could take that money and put it into a high yield savings account, which gets into my second point, that when you buy a CD, that money is locked at that rate, but it's also locked up in that CD. Now, you can pull that money out early, but you have a withdrawal penalty for doing that. And just, again, weigh your pros and cons if you decide that that's worth it to you. But I'm a big fan right now of the flexibility of a high yield savings account. There's no withdrawal penalty. I can take my money out whenever I want, put more money in whenever I want. A CD is more like purchasing a note. It is you are buying the CD, you're locking in the rate that at the time of you buying it. You are locking in the amount of money you want to put into that CD, and you're locking in the time span. So like if I want to get a CD right now for, I don't know, let's say 4%, I could buy a 4% CD for 3 years for $1,000. My $1,000 is locked up for 3 years, but at the end of the 3 years, I get that 4%. Now, I can withdraw early, but if I want to get my maximum money, my full 4% return, then I need to wait that 3 years' time. So a CD I would recommend if you think that the interest rates are going to go down and you want to lock in a really high rate. Like right now, a 5-year CD can get you, I think it's 4.15% is what I saw on some websites. So currently in 2024 March. So if you buy a 5-year CD, you're getting that 4.15% for 5 years. So if everything goes down to 2%, and the highest you can get in the CD becomes 2%, high yield savings accounts earn 2%. Well, you managed to lock in at a 4% on that CD. Great, go you, you're winning. So it's just a risk to factor in. And CDs, I think, are right for some people, and high yield savings accounts are right for others. I think that maybe even consider having both. Have money that you need more flexible access to in your high yield, and then if you have enough savings where you're like, yeah, I don't know, I don't need to touch this $2,000 for several years. This is for a house like 10 years from now. Throw it in the CD. But to explain more why I personally don't like CDs is because if I'm going to put a chunk of money away for 5+ years like that, I wouldn't want to put it into a CD. I would want to put it into the stock market. So we covered banks, we covered high yield savings accounts, we covered CDs. Lastly, we are going to cover the stock market. So I think when the people hear the stock market, they think of risk and ups and downs and losing all your money. To be fair, out of all the things I mentioned, banks, your money's locked into a certain route, it's a certain rate, it's insured, you're getting all your capital back. High yield savings account, you get all your capital back. Stock CDs, you get your capital back. But the stock market is different. There is the possibility and risk of it going down and tanking and you not getting all your money back. That's why I tell people that I would highly suggest you only put money in the stock market you can keep for lots of years. I told my buddy the other day, 5 years plus. The stock market has gone up at a rate of 9.81% since inception. I believe it was 1929. So so that's almost 100 for almost 100 years. It has gone up an average of almost 10%, 9.81% per year. So after that 3% inflation, that is 7% a year return on your money. Notice how out of all the things I've mentioned, that is the highest rate of return for your money. It combats inflation and makes you a lot. CDs will combat inflation right now. They combat inflation and make you like 1% on top. High yield savings account combats inflation, makes you about 1% on top. But the stock market combat inflation and make you 7% on top That's the most money you'll get out of all these options, and that's great. Now it's higher risk. You have to do research. You have to kind of know what you're doing. You can't just put the money, set it, forget it, and leave. But you almost can do that. There are things called ETFs, which are you're buying a stock that inside that stock is a company that buys a lot of stocks. So VU and SPY are two examples of some of the best ETFs. VTI is also a good one that I personally don't invest in, but I don't want to. Everybody in the comments is going to be like, oh my gosh, you forgot VTI. VTI is a good one too. But VU and SPY are ETFs. Think an ETF is like a basket of stocks. An ETF contains the Fortune 500. It's the S&P 500. The top 500 stocks performing in the market are going to be included when you buy some VU or buy some SPY. The 500 best are going to be included in that purchase, and it is automatically behind the scenes getting moved in and moved out within it to grow. So when it's like managed for you. It's like lawn care. It's like when you buy like a share of VU, the people that run VU at Vanguard, the company in the offices, they're looking at the top 500 companies and they're saying, oh, company number 499 is doing really bad right now. This is going to push them to spot 505. We don't need to invest in them anymore. So they boot them. They sell those shares. Oh, spot number 505 is now at 499 because they're doing really well. We don't want to miss these gains. They buy it. So they're weeding out the bad performers and pulling in the good performers to keep it growing. If you look at the charts for VU, for SPY, it has just gone up over time. Let's see if I can go ahead and flip my display on and get it so we can take a look at what I'm talking about here. Let's see. Okay, so now we can go ahead and see a little bit here. Let's look at VU return. Let's go to VU. VU tracks the market. Let's go to the 5-year span. Max time. Look at that. Look at that. That is just straight up 362% over all time, up 81% in the past 5 years, up 32% in the past year, 32% in the past year. That's not 3%. That's not 4. Up 81% in the past 5, up 362. Those are returns that you would just not be seeing. That was a lot. Sorry about that. But those are returns you won't be seeing in the other methods. And this is why I love the stock market. I'm not hating on the rest. I have a bank account for things like my bills. I have a high yield savings for emergency fund. Highly suggest you have an emergency fund. That's the next video. I'm going to talk about, well, you mentioned all these things. How much should I put in each one? I recommend a high yield savings account too. I personally don't do CDs, but you could do a CD if you'd like. I'd take that money and add more to the stock market. And if you go the route of the stock market, I would recommend, if you don't know what you're doing, put 100% of your money into strong ETFs, like VU, SPY. If you want international exposure, I think VXUS is an international ETF. But don't handpick companies. Do not be like, oh, Apple looks good. Ooh, this AMC looks good. Oh, this one looks good. Because you are gambling at that point. And you might think, oh, but you handpick stocks. I do, but I also do a lot of heavy research on my stocks before I do it. And I'm not really trying to beat the market. That portfolio is kind of for YouTube and for fun. But if you want to guarantee that nearly guarantee that 9.81% return that the S&P 500 has given since 1929, you're going to want to lock in VU, lock in SPY, and put some money in there, and you'll see that money grow, beat inflation, and make you a lot more. So that is why I'm passionate about the stock market. That is why I love informing you guys on what I'm up to and making sure you guys have a wide picture view of finances and where you can put your money and what your options are available to you. So yeah, this is the longest video I've ever done. It's right about 20 minutes. But if you guys are made all the way to the end, thank you so much. Leave a comment. Let me know you heard this part. And comment you're a real one down below. Hit that like button, subscribe, share. Let me know if you guys like the informal videos, informational videos that I'm teaching you guys about your options. So yeah, until next time, and I'll leave you guys a video next, probably about how much I suggest you put into each fund, which is going to be extremely different for every person. But I will give you just an idea of what I do for each different fund, like how much I have in the bank, how much I put in high yield, how much I put in stock market, etc. All right. Thanks, guys. See you.